It's one of the most legendary hypercoasters out there. Today's coaster review is of the Diamondback at Kings Island. This coaster was added in 2009 and is consistently considered one of people's favorite roller coasters because it has so much airtime. I'm going to be giving all of my thoughts about it in today's video, but of course let's first start with the stats. Of course this is a B&M hypercoaster. That means that in terms of airtime, you're going to be getting these huge airtime hills that mostly consist of floater airtime. Its maximum height is 230 feet, making it the tallest ride at Kings Island. It has a 215-foot drop, and that is at a 74-degree angle. And its maximum speed reached is 80 miles per hour. Very impressive. The maximum G-force is 4.2. It has over 5,000 feet of track. And according to Kings Island, it has a 3-minute ride time, but that is including the lift hill and the time spent on the brake run. So once you take that out and consider it from the moment it leaves the lift hill to the moment that it hits the brakes, the actual ride time that you're spending on the coaster is 1 minute and 49 seconds. Now, like I mentioned, these hypercoasters are all about the airtime, and Diamondback actually has 6 main airtime moments, 5 hills, and then you also come up out of your seat as you come up to the brakes because of the angle that you're going in at them. Now, one of the interesting things about this hypercoaster compared to others is that this one does not have an out and back layout. Coasters like Apollo's Chariot and Intimidator or Carowinds go straight out and come back, and so generally that allows for more airtime hills. Because of Diamondback's layout, it also has a mix of airtime hills with bank turns. And so it's an interesting argument of which coaster is going to have a better layout. A hypercoaster that also has some twister elements in it, or a coaster that just goes straight out and back. And that's totally up to you. It's not me to tell you which layout is better. It all depends on whether you'd rather have more airtime but less bank turns, or a mix of the two. And it is very nice how Diamondback does go out into the woods. A coaster like Intimidator at Carowinds is just smack dab on a parking lot. So the setting of Diamondback is very nice. Unfortunately, it does make it a bit hard to get footage of it. Probably the best point to get footage of Diamondback is when you're riding the train. You get a pretty good view. The problem with that is that the train's always moving, so you'd have to time it pretty well if you want to get footage. Now, when you talk about Diamondback and compare to the other hypercoasters, one of the things people always think of is how Diamondback has a splashdown element. I think this is very cool, and it's awesome that Kings Island has this. The only other coasters you really see this on is on dive coasters like Griffin and SheiKra. However, that being said, Diamondback is not the only hypercoaster that has a splashdown. You also have Shambhala over in Spain that has one, but this is the only one in the US that has a splashdown element. So now you know a little bit about the ride. Let me give my thoughts on it. I like the amount of airtime on it. It's very cool to compare a front seat ride to a back seat ride. Either way, you're going to be getting some good airtime. And overall, the ride experience is very good. This is an excellent hypercoaster. My main complaint is that it does have a B&M rattle to it. That's when the coaster almost vibrates against the track. Normally with coasters like this, it should be glossy smooth. Think like Intimidator at Carowinds smooth. That's a good hypercoaster that doesn't have a rattle to it. Or at least it didn't when I rode it. But this one does have a slight rattle. So that is something that I was disappointed with this coaster. I was kind of hoping for a glossy smooth ride. But I think that if you're the general public and not a coaster enthusiast, then you probably won't notice that at all. By no means is this coaster rough. It's just kind of slightly annoying. It's what prevents the coaster from getting a perfect 10 in my opinion. One of the other things people love to talk about is this the best coaster at Kings Island? And that really comes down to what you're into. The top 3 coasters at Kings Island are all excellent, and I see good arguments for all 3 of them of which coaster is the best. Overall, I think I would consider this one the best at Kings Island, but I've heard good arguments for the Beast is the best or Banshee is the best. So it's time for a final score, and I kind of teased it earlier, but I'm giving Diamondback a 9.5. The only thing that really could make this coaster better is if it didn't have a rattle. Maybe I just rode it on an off day, I don't know. But it is a really solid ride. Definitely one of my favorites. If you saw my top 15 coasters I've ridden, it did make that countdown. It's not my favorite hypercoaster, but it is very good. It gives a long ride, it's got a good balance of bank turns and airtime, and it's just one of those fun coasters. It's not terribly intense, but it doesn't need to be intense. This is just a plain fun ride, and sometimes that's all you need. So thank you for watching. Make sure to check out other coaster reviews. They're all available in a playlist on my channel, and they're organized in alphabetical order. So if you're looking to see if I've reviewed a certain coaster, check that playlist and see if it's on there. and I'll catch you guys next time here at Coaster Studios.